Welcome to another episode of Am I Right? Today we have Brent Perkins on with us, and he has an incredible story about his writing journey, his life journey, and kind of that voice inside of you that has something to share that you think could be value for other people. And I just am really excited to kind of dive in and talk about that and about control and how we don't have control. You have to let it go, surrender. And I think this is going to be pertinent for both business and fiction creatives who are listening to the show. So without further ado, Brent, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to kind of dig into some of the stuff and really talk about that crossover between business and creativity and how they can play with each other.
Mm-hmm. And it's really not a finite line that separates those two. It's very blended. So, and I think that the more people we interview on the show, the more we see how much that is just all one thing. Any kind of writing is all creativity. So one thing that you had on your bio that I read, off air that I really loved is that you went from corporate America and then you had this divine sort of mission that you found in yourself to share your story with the world. And I think that feeling of, okay, I think I have something to tell people and I think it could help them is something that a lot of the, listeners and viewers and writers feel. And so my question to you to kick this off is to share a little bit about your story. When did you start to decide you had a story to share? And was it like something that you neglected for a while, or did you just kind of throw it on a page and see what happens? Like, what was that experience for you?
Yeah. So December of 2022, so 8 months ago, I was kind of winding down a 5-year career or stint as being a CEO of a manufacturing company. And I was starting to look for what I'm going to do next. And just everything it wasn't easy. It didn't feel right. It just kind of felt gross and heavy. And my daughter's like, it's December. Just relax, Dad. You can take a couple of weeks off. So I did, and we enjoyed the holidays. And December 30th, I was sitting in meditation, which is something I started doing I started about April of 2022. And I just kind of was getting this transmission, this message, which said, hey, it's time to stop doing and to start being. And through that, you're going to tell a story. And I was really confused. And then it kind of came through clear that, hey, you're going to write a book. And internally, I kind of looked up and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. So I kind of ignored it. And the next day, I got the same message, only stronger. And this time it was like, and by the way, here's the title of the book you're going to write. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not a writer. I've never wanted to write a book. I got to go jump into a career and make money. This isn't the path for me. And I sat on it for about a week. And I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast. And I realized, Tim and I think alike. I did a little research, found out he used Scrivener, kind of just played around with it. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to play with this at all, now's the perfect time not to waste in my life. And so I gave it 2 weeks, and I tried to write an outline and got myself stuck and all that. And I was like, this isn't working. So I'm like, what if I just start writing? And so I gave up on the outline and I just started writing. I sat down for 4 hours a day. Wow. And in 60 days, I'd written 60,000 words. And here we are.
You took off on a sprint.
Yes.
Yeah. 4 hours a day is nothing to cry about. That's a lot of work and a lot of mental kind of control and effort. And I love that you said, what if I just started writing? It's like you went from plotter to pantser. You just jumped that and you didn't even know you were doing it. We talk about that all the time on the show. Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Do you, how much effort do you put into it? But sometimes it takes just barfing those words out onto the page to know where you're even going. Yep. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad choice. I mean, you do have to have some kind of organization at some point, right? But just getting it out there. And it's kind of terrifying to look at that blank page and try to decide what am I doing? What am I supposed to put on this? I don't know how to begin. So I commend you for just deciding to do it. And especially with not having a background in writing and just deciding that that's something that you needed to do because of what you felt like you were told. And so that's really inspiring. And with that, was it because you were, I guess, this message that you felt like you had to share? It is from a difficult life experience, but also what made you think that maybe it could be beneficial to other people? Was it just God telling you, you're in your meditation, this is what it needs to be? Or were you seeing something, in other people that they're struggling to discover for themselves?
Yeah, I've been on my own kind of self improvement, self growth journey for about 8 years. I got divorced a couple of years ago, and this was kind of the final stage of this journey. And don't get me wrong, this journey is a lifelong journey. But these last couple of years have kind of fast forwarded things, and the book ended up being a crucial piece to this journey. Not only the book itself and the fact of having it come out of me, but I would say half of the stories in the book I didn't have until that 90-day period of time I was writing it. People I met, friends I sat down and had coffee with, all of these stories came out during this writing process. It was like 5 years of therapy fast forwarded into 60 days. It was insane. So
Wow.
what's this book for? Who's it for? It's for me.
It was for you. Yeah.
And I actually wrote this in the dedication. Sounds narcissistic at first. This book's, I dedicated it to myself, and I wrote a little bit more. And I said, basically, if I can assist myself in doing the work that only I can do, maybe this will resonate and help somebody else have permission to step into the work that only they can do.
I'm reading a book right now that I'm sure a lot of people have heard about. It's called Everybody Writes. And she talks about how if you're thinking about the masses when you write a book, when you write the outline even, it will not resonate. But if you can narrow it down to one person and write it for that one person, then it will resonate with, the masses. And so it's not technically, I mean, I don't know if you're always supposed to write for you. I don't know if that's what she meant.
Probably not.
But I think that has a lot of, that has a lot of value to it, is that I wrote my first horrible manuscript for the reader that I was and the book that I wished I had to read, to inspire me. And I think that's a very common thing, is it's your inner self, right, that you're writing for. I mean, it's a hard process. Writing for 4 hours every day for 60 days is exhausting, especially creatively, your mind. And what drives you, there's got to be some self-motivation in there, for the person that you are and the person that you think that you want to read. And so that's cool. And I think that you kind of skipped some steps not knowing what you were doing. I think you were already on the right track creatively before you even realized what you were doing. And that's awesome. And so, I mean, it's clearly it wasn't something that you expected to happen in your life. And the question that I now have, and I think would be really cool to hear about, is what effect has being an author and a writer had on you now? Was it just the therapeutic part of it? Is there more that you've been discovering as you've gone along? I mean, I know you've got more, I'm sure, that's coming to us in the future. Hopefully your writing life isn't over now, but
yeah, I realize whether you're a writer or a painter or a musician or whatever your creative outlet is, it's really this direct path to your soul, to your higher self, and to being curious and allowing answers to come through in whatever your medium is. So it's been cathartic. It's been eye-opening. It's been it just feels really good to know that for somebody who's been stuck in their left brain their whole life and really, really using logic to run businesses, there's so much more inside of each of us. And so many people I run into or have known in my life don't believe they're artistic, and it's just not true. You just have to unlock it.
Yeah, that reminds me of another read, Big Magic. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but
Heard
she
of it.
talks about how people she's the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and people say, oh, I'm not creative, and that's not necessarily true. Your creativity comes in different ways, and just because you can't paint something or I guess write something doesn't necessarily mean that you have an inability to make your life your own and to do it in a way that brings you joy and value. And I think you're the epitome of that. So thank you for sharing. And I'm excited to see once it comes out, because we'll talk about this later. There's upcoming release dates for things. There's something that just came out on Audible, a version. And I think the more that it spreads, I'm excited to hear the feedback that you get, from those who were touched by it, because I think that's one of the most valuable things that's come from my writing, is just hearing how it's affected other people, that you were willing to share something raw and emotional. And it's going to be really cool. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's switch topics a little bit. Let's talk about control. This is something that your book is about, which maybe we should take a moment to let you explain what's in your book first. So I'll give you that minute and then we'll talk about control.
Yeah, lots of words shared. No, so the book is called Paper Cuts: The Art of Self-Delusion. And it's it's taking a look at, we grip onto control so tight, and yet the only person we have control of is really ourselves. And our choice, our free will at the highest level, I think too often we forget that it's not about, hey, do I want sushi or pasta tonight? It's really this granular level. How am I interpreting the experiences I'm having every second of every day in my life? We only know life through our five senses. That's how we experience it. Even us talking, I'm hearing you, I'm looking at you on the screen. I can't really, there's no really like any sort of taste or smell in between this video conference. But there's still, we're seeing each other, we're looking at each other's eyes, our movements, we're interpreting what this experience is like. And I guarantee it's different for you than it is for me. And it's also a choice, because I can look at the way you just pursed your lips or squinted your eyes, and I could interpret it to mean, oh, she's not liking the way my cadence is going. Or it could be, oh, yeah, she's resonating. She gets it. She's nodding along. And there's this huge spectrum from just positive to negative that we can interpret it, and it's all true. I mean, how often have you walked away from an experience, a dinner party, a coffee date, a handshake with somebody, and you're like, that person's an asshole. Well, that was frustrating, right? I can't believe they showed up that way. And you walk away, and your colleague, your partner says, hey, you didn't know this, but when you took that quick phone call, they actually got a call from their mom, and their kid's in the hospital. And, something happens where we didn't know it. And you're like, oh, and now I get why her actions changed. She showed up this way, like he did this. And we change our truth, our interpretation of that story. So if we hold both of these truths, whether they're 5 minutes apart or 5 years apart, because maybe we learned something that happened in our past, I argue that they're really all delusions. It's Einstein who said this world is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. So if our interpretations can change and they're always true because we hold them as true, then they're really delusions.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is where the title, becoming the artist of your own self-delusion, is pick your path. It's all, whatever you want to make true can be true. So paint with the brush that actually improves your life, makes you smile, is on the road to happiness, instead of giving yourself these small paper cuts that you can't see, but holy cow, they hurt over time.
I love that. Love that. Paper cuts. It's beautiful. And by the way, the cover is beautiful. You guys will be able to look it up and find it very quickly. And the art is done by the author himself, which is a part of embracing, make it what brings you joy. And that was part of what you wanted to do. And you did it. And it looks great. And I love that. And I think I love the paradigm. You talk about your paradigm shifts. That's always something that I'm thinking about. How has my paradigm shifted today? And you only have one. You only have one paradigm, and everybody's is different. And so I like what you say, how one is not necessarily true. And I think that's part of what art and writing brings to us, is other paradigms, and it shifts our thoughts and how we perceive ourselves through characters and through truths that people share. So I think if you haven't read it, go read it, go listen to it, get ready for, what he has to share. And with control, I think us as authors, we particularly struggle with this. We can't control publishers. We can't control agents. Can't control when they read our query. We can only control our query. We can't control a lot of the publishing process. In fact, we sign over a huge percent of it, sometimes all but 15% of it. Can't control what the cover is, can't control what the readers think, especially when it gets in their hands. It's not in your control anymore. And so with so much of your, what feels like your power being taken away from you, why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep writing and just suffering this, the difficult parts of this and succumbing ourselves to this over and over again? It's not about the control, right? It's about what brings you fulfillment. And so I think you kind of already answered this in the synopsis of your book, but for those of us struggling with that, or the off days where we have those dark nights of the soul and we're wondering why are we even trying this? Why am I even doing this? What advice would you give to those?
Yeah. So the answer is really simple and pretty effing hard. And it doesn't just apply to writing, it applies to all of life. And it's that we really don't have control over anything except for how we react to situations, those choices. And it's our grip. It's this control we try to have on life, who our romantic partner is, what the job is we have and how we show up, what our boss does, all these pieces we try to control. Even our art, right? So maybe especially our art, because it's so intimate. It's hard to be that vulnerable without completely giving up and to completely give up our control. Yet that's also how we get vulnerable, which is another topic. So for me, and I can only speak to my experience, there is no prescriptive pathway here. Letting go of the life I built for 45 years, to say, hey, okay, I'm not going to be CEO anymore. I'm not going to run a business. I'm going to just let this out of me. And to go, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills necessarily or get money in the door, or whether it's going to sell or not. But you know what? This has to happen for me. This has to happen for the world. There's somebody else that's going to impact, even if it's only one other person. And to lean in and just allow it to be, because there's so much we can't see. We're only human. We know and can see almost nothing. Let's be honest. What
and
I've
sadly, there's no way to change that.
Yeah. And what I've experienced by allowing this process to happen and not having to go get a side job and push it off and work 30 minutes a day, but just fully leaning in for this 60 to 90 days. So many things have happened that I could have never predicted. I had no idea were possible. And they're all because I surrendered.
Wow. I love that. Surrender. You got to surrender. It's hard. Like you said, it's effing hard. It's hard. And I think it's a daily, it's a multiple times daily. You're going to have to say, am I going to surrender this? Am I going to let this go?
It's life's journey is how to daily surrender.
Yeah. You can't just arrive to it. It's something you work on all the time. But a great piece of advice. There's our plaque quote for the episode. We always have a quote that I want to put on a plaque on my wall. I'd have walls covered in plaques from this show, but I would definitely say you have to surrender because you can't control, and that's perfect. And you've been blessed with the fulfillment that you get from translating your thoughts to the page, and you've been getting therapeutic help. You've been getting mental clarity, life clarity, and I would challenge those who are listening as a takeaway to take this week each day to appreciate the creative step that you're in, no matter where it is. If you're in the query trenches, try to appreciate that too. And remember that, you've created something beautiful from your own mind, and that every word is your own, and that wherever you're at, just be happy with the fulfillment that you get from it. So that would be my challenge. And I wish I could talk to you more and ask you more about your book. I guess I'm just going to have to get in and read it and take some notes. But I just want to say thank you for coming on. I'll have you stick here for a minute. But to those who are listening to the show this week, just remember to keep writing on.